The wind screamed like a beast outside. Snow covered everything, thick, heavy, and endless. On planet Virelia, winters could last for months, and in the mountains, they were even crueler. Carter lived alone in a small metal shelter built into a rock wall. He wasn't a soldier, not anymore. Just a mechanic who chose the cold over crowds. Life was quiet, hard, but peaceful, until the third night. He heard it again. Scratch, scratch. A soft noise, like something weak was dragging its hand across the metal door. He grabbed his jacket and stepped toward the entrance. His heart beat faster. The first night he thought it was wind. The second he thought it was his mind playing tricks. But now, he knew better. He pressed the button. The door opened with a hiss. The wind hit his face hard. Snow blew into the room. But outside, nothing. No creature. No voice. Only faint, strange footprints disappearing into the blizzard. He stepped outside and followed them a few meters. The snow was deep. Too deep for any weak being to walk through alone. But someone had. Then he saw something half buried behind a rock, a pile of dark cloth. He rushed to it, thinking it might be a dropped jacket or survival blanket. But it wasn't. It was a burned robe, still warm, the edges black with ash. There were other torn pieces too. Thin fabric, no real protection. She burned her own clothes to stay alive. He whispered, shocked. Carter looked around again. Nothing. No body. No blood. Just silence. He went back inside, his mind spinning. That wasn't normal. That wasn't human behavior. Whoever was out there was desperate. The next day, he left food outside in a sealed metal container. A piece of bread, dried fruit, a warm ration bar. He didn't know if anyone would take it, but it felt right. When he checked hours later, the container was empty, but the snow around it was untouched. No prints, no trail, just gone. That night, the scratching came again, softer this time. He jumped from bed and ran to the door. This time he didn't hesitate. He opened it wide, and there she was. A figure fell forward, right into his arms. She was shaking, lips blue, skin pale and cracked like ice. Thin, too thin. Her hair was long, tangled, and partly frozen. Her feet were bare, and she wasn't human. Her skin was a strange violet blue, her fingers longer than his, her ears gently pointed. An alien, but not like any he had seen before. She looked up at him with glassy silver eyes, then collapsed. He didn't think, he acted. Carter lifted her gently, carried her inside, and placed her on the heated bed. She was ice cold. He grabbed all his blankets, wrapped them around her, and turned the heater up. Her breathing was weak. He whispered softly, "You made it, stranger. You made it through 3 nights." She opened her mouth slightly. Her voice was rough like stone scraping metal. "Why didn't you leave me to die?" Carter blinked. "What?" She tried to speak again but passed out before she could finish. He worked quickly. Heated water, cleaned her hands and face, applied medical gel to the frost burns. He didn't know her species, but pain was pain, and healing was the same for all. The room grew warmer. The fire hummed. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, the silence was heavy, but full of questions. Who was she? Where had she come from? And why was she alone, burning her own clothes just to survive? Hours passed. She slept, breathed slowly. Lighter now. Carter watched her from the chair. She had survived 3 nights in a death storm. With no food, no fire, no protection. That wasn't luck. That was will. He looked at her again, her chest rising and falling under the blankets, her face soft now, no longer stiff from cold. She had knocked on his door 3 times and never said a word. Until now. "Why didn't you leave me?" He whispered, Because I'm human. And because no one deserved to die in the snow, alone. The fire crackled softly in the corner of the small shelter. Carter sat beside the alien woman, wiping her forehead with a damp cloth. Her skin was no longer icy, but it was still far from warm. Her breathing was steady now, but shallow. Every few minutes she twitched like she was trapped in a nightmare. He had seen this kind of fear before, back during the war. Soldiers who didn't scream. They just shook in silence. She hadn't told him her name. She hadn't told him anything, but she had survived 3 nights in a death storm. That said enough. He left a cup of warm broth beside her and moved to the far corner of the room to give her space. He kept checking the scanner. No signs of nearby life forms, no patrols. The mountain was quiet. Then suddenly she moved. Her eyes opened. Slow, careful. She sat up fast, too fast, and gasped as pain hit her body. Easy, Carter said softly, raising a hand. You're safe. Her eyes darted around the room. She looked at the fire, then at her own hands, still wrapped in the blanket. She stared at him. You let me in, she whispered, confused. Carter nodded. Yeah. You were freezing to death. No one else did. He tilted his head. Others saw you? She nodded slowly. I waited outside 2 other stations, scratched the walls and knocked. They turned off their lights. Carter's face hardened. They left you out there? Her eyes met his again. I thought humans feared aliens. He shrugged. Some do, I don't. She stared at the cup beside her. What is that? She asked. Soup. Just sip it, slowly. She picked it up with both hands, sniffed it, then took a small drink. She closed her eyes. It's warm. Yes, Carter said. Not painful, she added, surprised. He frowned. Why would it be? She looked at the heater by the fire and pulled the blanket tighter around herself. In my world, warmth is punishment. Heat is used to hurt. It's how they mark those who disobey. Carter sat down across from her. So you feared the fire? She nodded. More than the snow. He took a breath. Well, here, fire saves us. No fire, no life. She looked at the small orange flames and tilted her head. No pain? No pain. She stared at it for a long time, then whispered, Strange world. Carter smiled. Yeah, gets stranger every year. A few hours later, she stood on shaky legs and walked slowly around the room. She touched the metal walls, studied the solar panel controls, and examined the food storage like it was all magic. You live alone? She asked. Yes. Why? Because I got tired of noise, Carter answered. Out here, everything is honest. The snow doesn't lie. The wind doesn't trick you. She nodded slowly. Silence is cleaner than words. He watched her carefully. She was still thin, still weak, but her movements were graceful, like someone who used to be strong. What's your name? He asked. She looked at him, hesitated, then softly said, Sierra. He smiled. Sierra. Nice name. I'm Carter. She repeated it quietly. Carter. It was the first time her voice had no fear in it. That night he laid out a thin mattress near the fire for her, but she hesitated to lie down. He noticed. You okay? She looked at the flames, flickering beside her bed. I don't know if I can sleep beside fire. He knelt down beside her. Then I'll stay nearby. If it gets too hot, I'll lower it. You're safe here, Sierra. She looked at him. You speak like someone who's been hurt before. He didn't answer right away, then finally said, Everyone carries scars. But I learned one thing. If I stop helping others, mine will never stop bleeding. Sierra slowly lay down, and for the first time since she arrived, she closed her eyes willingly. As the storm howled outside, Carter watched over her. She didn't shake. She didn't cry. and she didn't scratch at the door. Because this time, someone had opened it. Sira awoke before dawn. The fire beside her crackled softly, casting a warm orange light across the shelter. She sat up slowly, pulling the blanket closer to her shoulders. Carter was still asleep, slouched in his chair, arms crossed, head tilted to one side. The room was warm, almost too warm. She stared at the flames. Her body was healing, but inside something twisted. The fire scared her, not because it was hot, but because it was kind. Where she came from, fire was never kind. Back on her homeworld, heat meant punishment. Fire wasn't used for cooking. It was used for branding, for burning weakness out of slaves, for marking the disobedient. Children were told never to touch heat or they'd carry the scars forever. That's what she had believed all her life. But Carter, this human, he used it differently. He touched firelight like it was a friend. He made warm food with it. He sat beside it to rest. No fear, no pain, just peace. Sira crawled a little closer to the flame. Her fingers shook. She reached her hand out slowly, just a little, just to feel the warmth, then stopped. She couldn't do it. Not yet. Carter stirred and blinked awake. "You're up early," he said, voice low and sleepy. "I didn't sleep much," Sira replied softly. He yawned and stood. "Bad dreams?" She shook her head. "Not bad, just memories." He noticed how she was watching the fire, how her eyes were wide with something between wonder and fear. "You still scared of it?" he asked gently. "Yes," she admitted, "but not the way I used to be." Carter walked to the fire and sat down beside it. He reached out and held his hands, close to the flame. "This saved my life more times than I can count," he said. "Out here you either make peace with fire or the cold takes you." Sira lowered her eyes. "Fire was never peace for me. It was pain." "Yeah," he nodded. "I figured. That's why I'm not rushing you." She was quiet for a moment, then said, You sit so close to it, aren't you afraid?" "Afraid of warmth?" Carter gave a soft smile. "No. I was afraid of silence once, and losing people, but not warmth." She looked up. "I don't understand how something so dangerous can be good. Same way a weapon can protect or destroy. It depends on who's holding it." Sira watched him move a pot above the fire, letting the steam rise into the room. "You use it to give," she said. "My people only used it to take." Later, Carter gave her a warm bowl of soup. She held it in her hand, still surprised that warmth could feel good. He sat across from her and asked, "Do you want to try something?" She tilted her head. "What?" He pointed to the fire. "Come sit with me. Not too close, just enough to feel it." Sira hesitated, then nodded. She moved slowly, sat beside him, a safe distance from the flame. Her body tensed, but Carter said nothing. He just sat with her. Minutes passed. Her shoulders relaxed. The heat from the fire wrapped around her like a soft wind, not a cruel hand. She turned her face slightly toward it, and for the first time, she didn't flinch. "It's not burning me," she whispered. "No," Carter said. "Because no one's forcing it on you." She looked at him. "No one's forcing anything," she added. He nodded. "That's how it should be." They sat together for a long time in silence. Then Sira said, "I was told humans only take." Carter looked at her. "Who told you that?" "My captors. My masters. They said if humans ever found me, I'd be sold or destroyed." He leaned back. "They were wrong." She gave a faint smile. "I know that now." Carter stared at the flame for a while. "You've been through a lot. But here's the truth. Not all humans are kind. Not all aliens are cruel, but we all get to choose who we become." She turned toward the fire again, this time a little closer. "I want to learn how to choose," she said. "You're already doing it," Carter replied. That night, Sira did something small, but powerful. Before lying down, she walked to the fire on her own and gently placed one more log into it. She stepped back quickly, her heart pounding. But she didn't run. She looked at Carter. He smiled. She smiled back, nervous but proud. And in that quiet mountain shelter, the woman who once feared warmth more than death was learning how to trust it. The storm outside had calmed, but inside the shelter something heavier remained. Sierra stood by the mirror in the small side room. Her fingers slowly unwrapped the medical bandage from her shoulder. She hadn't let Carter see her full back yet, not even once since he brought her in. But now, she needed to look. The skin beneath was scarred, not from the snow, from flame. Thick burn lines stretched across her shoulder blades and down her spine. Old, deep, twisted. Her breath caught in her throat as she traced one with her fingertip. Each scar had a meaning. Each one was a memory she didn't want. Carter was working quietly on a broken drone battery when Sierra stepped out of the room, wrapped in a long cloak. Her voice was low. "Carter." He looked up. "Yeah?" "I want to show you something." He stood slowly, concerned. "Are you all right?" She hesitated, then turned around and let the cloak fall from her shoulders. Carter's breath stopped. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He just stared at her back. Scarred, marked, burned. Sierra spoke without turning. "This was my punishment." Carter stepped closer, gently. "For what?" "For speaking when I wasn't allowed, for standing too tall, for looking someone in the eye." He swallowed hard. "They did this to you?" "Yes," she whispered. "With iron rods. With heat." She finally turned back around to face him. "I was told these marks were proof of my shame. That they would remind everyone I belonged to. Someone." Carter didn't speak. She stepped closer. "But now, I want to know what you see." He looked her in the eyes. "I see proof that you survived." She blinked, unsure. "I see strength," he said, "and I see a woman who walked through fire and kept walking." Her voice cracked. "But they're ugly." "No," he said firmly. "They're yours. And that makes them powerful." She closed her eyes, trembling. "You're the only one who's ever said that." He gently reached out, not touching the scars, but placing his hand near her shoulder. "I won't make them disappear," he said softly. "But I'll never make you hide them." She looked at him, eyes full of something that was not fear, but not yet peace. "You're strange, Carter," he smiled. "I've been called worse." That night, they sat together beside the fire. Again. Sierra was quiet, watching the flames. She spoke suddenly, as if her words had been waiting for hours. "My people believe that warmth is dangerous." "I know," Carter replied, "but cold is worse." He nodded. "It kills slowly." She looked down at her hands. "On the third night, I almost gave up. I told myself the cold would be better than another day of running." He watched her closely. "But then I saw your light." She turned to him. "And it wasn't just firelight. It was hope." "I didn't believe in that word until then." Carter didn't smile. He just said, "You came to the right door," she whispered. "I almost didn't knock." He reached into his pocket and handed her something small, a silver coin-sized device. "What is this?" she asked. "Emergency tracker," he said. "One I built myself. Quiet. Hidden. You press it, and it'll send a signal to me no matter where I am." She stared at it. "You made this for me?" "For you," he confirmed, "in case you ever get lost again." Sierra closed her fingers around it like it was treasure. "I won't run anymore," she said. "Not unless we run together." He nodded. "I'd go anywhere with you," he said quietly. "Even through fire." The next morning, Sierra stood by the window. Snow had stopped falling. The clouds had broken just enough to let sunlight touch the ice-covered trees. She turned to Carter. I think I'm ready, she said. For what? She took a deep breath. To start over. The snow was quiet again. But Carter had learned something out here. Silence didn't always mean peace. That morning, while checking his solar panel lines, he spotted it. A footprint. Not his. Not Sierra's. Fresh. Too fresh. He knelt by it. 4 toes. Long stride, heavy pressure, alien. He looked toward the trees. The trail vanished into the frost, but he knew someone, or something, had found them. He returned to the cabin fast. Sierra was warming her hands by the fire. She looked up as he came in. What's wrong? She asked. You said your people sent you into the snow, as punishment. She nodded slowly. I think they came back to make sure it worked. They sat at the table, lights dimmed, heater low. Carter brought out a map, laying it flat. There are 2 exits from this area, he said. One leads down the valley, but it's wide open. The other is a frozen cave that leads through the cliffs. It's slower, but covered. Sierra shook her head. They're not here to capture me. He looked at her. Then why? To erase me, she said softly. If I survived, I would be proof. Proof that their punishment wasn't final, that I lived. Carter's jaw clenched. So they're here to silence you, she nodded, and kill anyone who helped me. He looked her in the eye. That includes me now. Sierra swallowed. Yes. A long silence filled the room. Then, Carter stood and walked to his storage case. He pulled out a plasma cutter, a shock baton, and a rusted old rifle. He turned to her. Then let them come. Her eyes widened. You don't have to do this. They'll kill you. I know. Then why stay? He strapped on a belt of tools. Because you knocked on my door. She stepped forward. You opened it. He looked at her. And I'd open it again. That night, the wind returned. But this time it didn't bring snow. It brought voices. Sierra stood by the window and saw them. 3 shadows, tall, cloaked in fur and bone armor, moving silently through the trees like ghosts. They circled the cabin, watching, waiting, hunters. She turned to Carter. They won't enter until I step out. They want you to surrender, he guessed. They think I'll beg. He looked at her. Will you? She raised her chin. Not anymore. They waited near the door, weapons ready. But then, a voice echoed through the cold night. Return with us, Sierra. Accept your place. We'll make your death painless. She took a step forward. Carter grabbed her wrist. Don't. But she looked at him calmly. They're watching for weakness. I need to show them I have none. She opened the door and stepped out into the snow. The wind hit her face, but she didn't flinch. The lead hunter stepped forward, helmet shining under the moonlight. You live, he growled. That was not allowed. Sierra stood tall. I'm not yours to control. You're marked. She nodded, and still breathing. The hunter raised his weapon. Carter fired first. The plasma shot struck the snow near the hunter's feet. A warning. The others turned fast, ready to fight, but Carter was already outside, standing beside Sierra. I suggest you leave, he said. She's under my protection now. The hunter laughed. You are a human mechanic. What do you know of our laws? I know this, Carter said. You left her to die, but she didn't. And now she's stronger than ever. The hunter growled and raised his rifle. Sierra didn't. Wait. She moved faster than Carter expected, diving forward, disarming the hunter with one swing of her arm. The fight began. It was quick, brutal. Sierra fought with no hesitation. Carter used his tools to blind one of them, then slammed the butt of his rifle into another. In less than 2 minutes, it was over. 3 hunters, defeated. Sierra stood over them, chest heaving, blood on her arm, a cut across her cheek. Carter walked over, placing a hand on her back. You okay? She looked at the sky. I thought I'd feel fear, she said. But all I feel is done. He smiled. That's what surviving feels like. She looked at the defeated hunters. I didn't fight because I wanted revenge. Why then? She looked at him. Because someone taught me that warmth is worth protecting. The snow outside was red now, faint drops of blood mixed with the white ground marking the spot where Sira had made her stand. The 3 hunters who came to erase her had failed and fled. But Carter wasn't celebrating. He was checking the power core inside the cabin. The fight had damaged part of the solar converter when one of the hunters' shock rounds hit the wall. Sira sat by the door holding the shock baton Carter had handed her before the battle. She was still shaking, but not from cold, from memory. She had never held a weapon before that day. Her people trained warriors from birth, but only the chosen males. Females, especially those like her, marked for exile, were forbidden from even touching weapons. And yet today, she had fought. She had struck, and she had won. Carter walked over and sat beside her. Power systems stable. They hit the outside but didn't crack the fuel line. Sira nodded silently. He looked at her. You okay? She didn't answer right away. Then, I didn't think I could fight. You didn't just fight, he said. You saved us. She stared down at the baton. My arms, they remembered what I'd never been taught. Blood memory, Carter said. Some strength is born inside. She looked up. When I stood in front of them, I felt something, like the fire I feared all my life, was now burning in me. And it didn't hurt, Carter added. No, she whispered. It made me feel alive. That evening, they sealed the door and sat near the fire again. The silence between them was different now. No fear, no awkwardness, just quiet understanding. Carter passed her a cup of warm broth. She held it in both hands and smiled, faintly. This is the first meal I've had, after fighting for it, he nodded. That makes it taste better. They sat for a while, listening to the wind outside. Then she asked softly, Was that a real firefight? Yes, he said. That was your first, and you made it outstanding. Sira touched her cheek where a shallow cut had started to heal. It hurt, she said, but not like I thought it would. Carter raised an eyebrow. What did you expect? I expected to feel helpless again, to feel like I was small, weak, but I didn't. She looked into the fire. I felt strong. Later that night, Carter gave her an old data pad. Try this, he said. You can log your thoughts or draw or whatever you want. She blinked. You're giving me something else? I'm not giving, he said. I'm sharing. Big difference. She stared at the datapad like it was something sacred. No one's ever done that before. Then they were fools, Carter replied. She smiled, a real smile. And that night, for the first time, Sira didn't sleep with one eye open. She curled beside the fire like it was her friend, because now it was. The next morning, Carter heard her humming softly while boiling water. Humming. He paused in the hallway, listening. The sound was low, gentle, like the wind through trees. Sira noticed. Him. Is something wrong? He smiled. No, just, that's the first time I've heard your voice sound like that. Like what? Free. She looked at the steaming pot and said quietly, Maybe it is. As the snow began to fall again, outside Carter stood beside her and looked out the window. Think they'll come back? She asked. He nodded. Probably. She didn't flinch. Instead, she gripped her shock baton. Let them. He turned to her. You're not afraid anymore? She looked at him, firelight glowing in her silver eyes. I used to think fire meant death, she said. But now I know. It also means fighting back. The snow had started melting. For the first time in weeks, the sun broke through the clouds above the mountain. Its light touched the shelter, the trees, and the frozen lake beyond. The world was still cold, but it no longer felt cruel. Inside, the cabin. Warmth wasn't just from the fire. It was from something deeper, something human, something alien, something shared. Sierra stood near the window, dressed in a thick coat Carter had stitched together from old gear. She had tied a simple cloth band around her arm, the same place the exile brand used to glow. Now it was just skin. Scarred, yes, but free. Carter walked in, brushing snow from his boots. "The signal tower's back online," he said. "Just local range, no galactic pings." She turned. "Good, I don't want the galaxy finding us." He nodded. "Same." She walked to the table where a small datapad sat. The screen showed a sketch she had made. 2 figures beside a fire. One tall, one sitting. Both smiling. "That us?" Carter asked. She nodded. "You gave me this datapad. I decided to fill it with things I want to remember, things I want to be." He sat down. "What do you want to be?" She looked at him with calm eyes. "Not a slave. Not a soldier. Just someone who matters to someone." Carter's voice was soft. "You already do." She stared at him, then whispered, "Do you ever wonder why you opened the door that night?" He smiled. "Every day." She laughed quietly. "And what answer did you find?" He looked at her gently. "Because you knocked." Later, Sierra walked outside and stood near the edge of the trees. She watched the snow melting around the fire pit they had built together. Not to cook, not to survive, but to sit around, to live. She crouched and touched the earth, softening beneath the heat. "I used to burn because others forced me to," she said, as Carter joined her. "Now, I burn by choice." He smiled beside her. "What will you do with that fire?" She looked up at him. "I'll use it to warm others." That evening, Carter handed her something wrapped in cloth. She opened it carefully. A small silver pendant shaped like a flame. "I found this in my old supplies," he said. "Figured you'd give it more meaning than I ever did." Sierra held it close. "I never had anything of my own," she whispered. "Not clothes, not a name, not even a future." He looked at her. "You do now." At night, they sat by the hearth, sharing a simple meal. No threats. No fear. Only quiet laughter and warm silence. Sierra leaned her head gently against Carter's shoulder. He didn't move. He just let her rest there, his hand quietly brushing hers. "Are you happy here?" he asked. She nodded. "I didn't know what home meant," she said. "Now I do." He turned to her. "You're welcome here forever." She looked into his eyes. "Even if I burned the stars behind me?" "You didn't burn them," he said. "You walked away from the cold." A few days later, a traveler's ship passed through the valley far below. They didn't stop. They didn't look up. They never saw the fire burning high in the mountain, the fire of a girl once exiled, now alive. But maybe that was the point. Some stories don't need to be broadcast. Some flames are meant to be kept quiet, and some homes are built not with walls, but with a door someone opened when no one else would. Sierra lit the fire that night, on her own. No fear, no hesitation. She placed the pendant beside the hearth and whispered in her native tongue, "Not to burn, but to warm." Carter stood, nearby watching her, and in that glow of shared silence he knew he hadn't just saved her life. She had saved his too.